sit here. See, there's the statue over here. There's the bell brick in the background. And you can't see here, but when you look straight this way, there's the little center. I learned all those.
Bill!
I'm a violent guy.
No, Bill, you're not a violent guy. Come on, don't go there. Come on. Not for the children.
My brother and I did in the hot weather. You don't have to the cool weather. And I'm buying the ticket. Make sure I get on the first boat.
That is true.
And then when we went over to
Once you get your funding round,
Chris Bush had
huh? No presidents?
you wanted to see, he said, "Let's go with it."
Yeah, I haven't been in the tower yet.
I really go, I was so happy to say, I want to take Chris.
Did you do this?
Yeah, I've been in the World Trade a couple of times. I remember
The
that.
125th.
Really?
Folks, can we begin?
Oh, really? Yeah. They called me in order or not.
I don't know if they have here. Right?
So welcome to our April Transit Riders Council meeting. The agenda, as you see it in front of you, is the agenda. Hopefully you have it. Can we get an approval of today's agenda? Thank you. Minutes, has everyone had a chance to review the minutes?
No.
If so, can we get an approval of the minutes? Thank you.
You're already on there. You're not.
Welcome to our rescheduled March meeting. We had a number of potential conflicts with our meeting dates this month. This is not right.
We're
This is the
April.
normal date.
Hi, Trudy.
Chris Greif and Trudy Mason testified on the April 7th public hearing on the Broadway line subway changes needed to accommodate the 2nd Avenue subway. To review New York City Transit's proposal, the changes will involve shifting the Q train from Brooklyn and Southern Manhattan to new tracks that will connect it to the 2nd Avenue subway at 63rd and Lex, and then continue north to the 2nd Avenue subway Phase 1 terminal at 96th Street. This, of course, means the Q will no longer serve Astoria, so it is proposed that the W train make its comeback to its old configuration and run between Whitehall Street and Ditmars Boulevard. These changes will allow the N to move to the express tracks in Manhattan, providing another option for riders seeking a quicker ride along Broadway. So the N and Q would be expresses, and the R and the W would be the local again. These changes are positive, and we thank and congratulate all of those who are working to make Phase 1 of the 2nd Avenue subway a reality.
Excuse me,
Yes.
did they give an answer to some of the questions I raised about the frequency and the service?
Don't have the service plan yet. I'm sure they're working on it, because that was raised by some board members as well, so we don't have an answer on it yet.
Well, do you have any idea how we might? I've been asked not only, this is not only the state, this is for other areas.
As this service plan is scheduled to start, at least with the Q running to 57th Street in September, I am assuming by May we will have an answer.
May I request that we?
Because they have to do picks for the union.
I
So
understand, may I request that we make that request again
Absolutely.
from us this time, not just from the.
No, we'll ask for the proposed service plan.
Or an information about when, I'm assuming, but when we might get it from them. Thank you.
Yeah, Bill, we're gonna send this to Ronnie, I assume, okay. In our testimony, we noted the significant role of our elected representatives in funding the project and recommended that New York City Transit examine the possibility of operating the W to and from Brooklyn in rush hours. There was much testimony about the shortage of service on 4th Avenue, local stations, and how much development is going on in neighborhoods that only the R serves, and at least in rush hour, we think. And since it's going to come from a yard in Brooklyn anyway, the W ought to serve passengers in rush hours in Brooklyn. Perhaps run to Bay R. This would restore the more frequent service that was lost when the M was reconfigured in the 2010 service cuts. The changes, except for the connection with the 2nd Avenue subway, will be implemented in advance of the scheduled opening of the new tracks by the end of 2016, using a temporary terminal to handle the queue. And yes, the scheduled opening is still set for before the end of 2016, although there are new challenges to meeting that date.
Next question.
Yes.
I'm sorry to do this, but I've been asked to,
To blow your nose?
no.
Yeah.
I've been asked to blow my nose off. Allergies are so bad, and they didn't call me on a news broadcast about it.
Yeah, it was
Like, they had
predicted.
to tell me that allergies is so
It's
bad.
bad.
Anyway, given all of these reports, especially about 72nd Street and the station, can I make another request that we request an update, not from what we're reading in the papers, unless you
A
got.
little louder, please.
I'm sorry. Okay. And you all may know that it's been reported in the media for the last week that there are serious problems with the 2nd Avenue subway opening by the end of the year, as we were all promised. And that they seem to center around the configuration and the construction and the track work. We thought it was 86th Street, but now it turns out that 72nd Street is in worse shape than 86th Street. And all I know is from what I read in the paper, all of the elected officials and everybody else, including Congressman Maloney, who got money to move up, extra money to move it up. So I have been asked if we could make a request for a full report to us, unless you've already done it from the board, but as quickly as possible.
The board has the same information, as of this past week, has the same information that the sticking point is the escalator installations at 72nd Street.
Well, could we get something in writing, or could I get something in writing that I can?
And I can also add, since you brought it up, that Judlow is the contractor for that station, Judlow Contracting, and it's Dr. H and some others' opinion that they're not putting enough personnel at this station, and they're being asked to do that, and the board is really, and the governor, of course, really want this open by the stated December 2016 opening date, and I don't know what they're willing to do to Judlow if they won't produce, but there was a lot of talk about
But
doing
haven't
something.
they also haven't signed the contract to actually expedite the work?
I think I heard that.
So
Well,
that
signed
hasn't
the
even
agreement,
started.
Let me
They
just
haven't
tell
signed the
you
agreement.
that Congresswoman Maloney and the other elected officials, the assemblymen, court, et cetera, are, but especially Congresswoman Maloney, because she actually got extra money to pay for overtime and to pay for, speeding up the work.
They haven't even
Just-
signed it.
Well, that is something that, when did we find out that they hadn't signed the contract yet?
Just the board
This
meeting
week,
last
this week.
Could you send me something like that, or is the board has anything in writing?
It should
Or
be
from the board
in the
minutes?
transcript from the meeting.
Okay, if you could get that to me, I would
I can
appreciate
look
it.
at it.
If you can,
Just,
just send
yeah, I mean, you know the link.
Yeah,
Okay,
yeah.
I'll just.
They'll send you the link.
We'll send you the
But
link.
it just so happens that
Oh, I think so.
Yeah, oh, yeah.
in another part of my life, I happened to spend an afternoon with Secretary Fox. And when I talked to him about it, he said, look, we're pushing this. This is one of our great things. And I said, well, it was just after the report had come out, or the news media. So I think that everybody wants to know what's going on. And they are, excuse me, I'll use the term of art, they are pissed as hell about what's happening there now.
MTA has allocated extra money to get this done on time,
Well,
and
Carolyn got that.
it's not money at the moment, it's the contractor, so.
And the contractor's name is on the line, and he thinks
Yeah.
it's really an unrealistic
Yeah.
deadline.
Yeah,
You can
but
see
it's
his
not the
hesitancy.
contractor's name. I mean, I think it's more a lot of other people who are,
Well, much as you heard the name Yonkers Contracting when we had the leaks at Hudson Yards,
yes.
and that name is not seen in a good light now, that could happen to Judlow if they don't straighten
Yeah,
up.
but the work is still not being done.
We'll get you.
Thank you.
Yeah. Now, where was I? Oh, yes. Last night, Bill Henderson testified on New York City Transit's plan to split the M5 into 2 segments, with the split occurring at 37th Street. This would, of course, be a major inconvenience for riders, and even New York City Transit admits that 1 in 7 riders would have to change buses to reach destinations that now can be reached in a single ride. I did find out, pursuant to my co-chair's testimony from CB7, that, of course, a 3-legged transfer will be given.
Yeah, I think they said.
When they split a route and it's not the rider's fault and it causes you to have to transfer more often, there will be a 3-legged transfer in case you have to take another 2 buses. We do recognize that long bus routes create reliability problems and a split may be necessary, but our testimony objected to New York City Transit's plan because we don't believe 37th is the right place for that split. Instead, we called for the route to be split with a long overlap similar to the M10 and M20, and so did speakers from the village and downtown. However, New York City Transit said an overlap is not possible due to a shortage of vehicles, and I was sitting next to Peter Caffiero, and he said, you know, a lot of buses that are on order are going to go to replace existing buses, and then of course, and this is not immediate, not nearly when the M5 is going to happen, but lots of buses are going to be taken up when the L train, the Canarsie 2 construction happens, and you're going to need shuttle buses from everywhere. So, you know, I don't know about the long overlap, but the split, I think they can do something about, although they didn't sound like they wanted to last night. Assuming that vehicle shortages preclude an overlap, we recommended that the point of the split be further south, possibly at 23rd or 14th Street. Peter Caffiero said that the express buses are really taking up any layover space at 23rd Street around Madison Square Garden, as you probably know. This would not eliminate all inconveniences, but could eliminate the need for some riders to transfer for a short ride to complete their journeys. Several senior and disabled folks spoke about it's hard enough getting on one bus, much less having to switch to a second bus to complete their trip. Don't know if that moved anybody. The discussion of the repair of the Canarsie tube is continuing, with the MTA and New York City Transit agreeing to hold a pair of public meetings to discuss alternatives for the repair of the tube under the East River. As you know, the Canarsie Tunnel's tubes were flooded in Superstorm Sandy and damaged to an extent greater than the subway system's other crossings. The 2 meetings will kick off with a Brooklyn session scheduled for the Marcy Avenue Armory in Brooklyn on May 5. A Manhattan meeting will be held later in May. As I have previously noted, any closure of the Canarsie Tunnel would not begin before early 2019, especially since the Bushwick Viaduct has to be done prior to that. But there is a strong desire to complete the reconstruction as soon as possible to prepare for the work and ensure that funding from Superstorm Sandy can be secured for this work, because we're getting further and further away from Sandy, and 2019 is a long way away from Sandy, so they have to do some things before that. There's a great deal of anxiety in the MTA that if the work is not committed soon, the federal recovery funds that are now available could be reprogrammed for other uses. While there is very little additional subway capacity available during peak hours, New York City Transit is moving to add some service that addresses increasing demand in off-peak hours. A total of 51 round trips is being added on the weekends and weekday evenings on the 2 and 7 lines. Most of the additional service will be on the 2 line, with 31 round trips added on Saturdays and 18 round trips added on Sundays. The remaining 2 round trips will be added on the 7 line in weekday evening hours between 8 and 10 p.m. The additional service is designed with an eye toward necessary capital and maintenance work, which has made travel inconvenient for many riders on nights and weekends. This change won't relieve the crush conditions during rush hours, obviously, but it should ease long waits for service at other times, as well as addressing the continuing trend of the relative fall in ridership peaks and rise in off-peak travel. I guess that's, or the leveling off of peaks and increasing. These changes are in addition to a package of peak and evening hour increases on the 2 line already scheduled to add 5 round trips in June of 2016. And also, Sunday morning, I believe, extra C service is gonna be provided to make up for a gap an inadvertent gap that was put into the system, to make it every 10 instead of every 12 minutes, I believe.
It was 12.5, Andrew.
12.3.
Now it's gonna go down to 10, supposed to be running every 10
Yeah,
minutes.
exactly. Although the New York Transit Museum Gallery Annex in Grand Central isn't as convenient to our meetings as it once was, you may want to take a look at its new installation entitled Transit Etiquette, or How I Learned to Stop Spitting and Step Aside in 25 Languages.
Everybody wants a card.
Yeah, it's a great title.
So can you pass it
Yeah,
around?
sure.
A great title. The exhibit consists of a collection of posters addressing a wide range of bad commuter behavior on trains and platforms from New York and throughout the world. The topics addressed are universal, but the approach, do they spit in other places? I guess they do.
Yes, they do.
Yes, they do.
Oh, yeah, do they hog doors in other places?
Yes, they do. I've been on other trains.
Except in those places where they
Not
have
as much.
pushers who put it
Yeah.
They
right.
spend far more around City Hall.
Yeah,
I noticed that when I
that's
worked.
interesting.
This is the old subway, the illustration from the
Subway
subway.
Sun, yeah.
Subway
Yeah,
Sun.
yeah.
I wish they'd bring that back, that was so.
The approaches to these varies from system to system and culture to culture. It's worth a trip to Grand Central before July 10 to see the exhibit and the universal issues dealing with transit etiquette.
Andrew, we used to
Yes.
be invited to their openings, like it says on here, you know, opening Wednesday, March 30th. How come we're not anymore?
That was, Beverly was on the board.
Yeah, I think she still is.
Yeah, but we got the invitation through her.
We haven't gotten an invitation in quite a while.
But that's,
Well, maybe we could ask
Get
them to be
maybe
invited.
we could
again.
become a member.
Oh. Okay, so let me go into the board report because there's several interesting items. So as I'm sure everyone has heard,
Excuse me, Andrew, there's one
Yes.
thing, you forgot two things on the agenda. Minutes and.
No one accepted
Well,
it.
You didn't accept it?
you know, they have their.
you
No
didn't
one
vote.
we
accepted
approved
it.
them already.
We did.
Yeah,
Where
so
did you go, to the Bahamas?
I'm right here.
No, I didn't hear it either.
Well,
We
the
did.
vote was taken.
Basically said no.
Yeah,
Didn't take
while I
it.
was standing up.
No, we didn't hear it.
Yeah, as a board.
It was said,
It was
it
not.
was,
And,
He proposed it.
yeah, they don't want us
oh,
on.
for God's sake, being
They didn't want to kick
Other-
Well, I guess, yeah, of course.
Well, Gabby,
No, she's
Every opportunity.
But yeah, I guess you
Maybe
can.
we could ask them.
Yeah. Let me go into the board report, please, because there's several interesting items. You probably all heard that the capital program was at long last over a year and a half late. Passed by the board. This now gets submitted to the capital program review board. If they take no action within 30 days, it becomes law. If they vote to approve it, it becomes law. It's only if they deny it. Considering that many of them had additions added to the program and to the budget, I would be really surprised if it was vetoed now. So, it is important that it be approved. However, even if it's approved, there is language in it that says the MTA will get money from the state when they need it. And does that when the MTA says they need it or when the governor says they need it? That is unclear. If it ends up that the MTA has to bond because the state hasn't released money in a timely enough basis, the state will pick up any additional debt service on those bonds. That will not be beholden to the MTA, which I guess is progress, but we shouldn't even have to be in this kind of position.
So what do you mean by additional debt service?
I mean, if we get the state will make good so that our bond rating will not go down because of so much additional debt service. That is a promise of the state. It's amazing that we have to even talk like that, but
I just want to mention, we should remember the service contract bonds
yeah.
that
Well,
are now being paid out of money that we're.
I don't know that the state ever made that promise. I don't know, did it?
That's,
It wasn't this governor, was it?
no, it wasn't this governor, but there are bonds that were issued that were supposed to be paid, where the debt service was supposed to be paid in full by the state. The state is now paying some of that debt service from money that was reserved for the MTA.
Yes.
I don't think we have to worry about any delay because Assemblyman Keith Wright, who is the Assembly representative to the CPRB, held a press conference announcing that phase 2 was going to start like immediately thanks to the passing of the capital plan. So I assure
There is
you-
some work, some preliminary work that is starting on phase 2.
Right, and that is
But not,
because.
you know, tunnel boring work.
No, but because of the I'm just saying that he went public on this.
That's good.
So therefore, I don't think we have to worry about any.
And since there is a suitable amount of road and bridge in the budget for upstaters, they should object to the passing of
No,
the
I mean, it was 4 men in a room, and they
I know.
met for a long time, and they resolved all the outstanding issues. So I'm just telling you, this is one worry that we don't have to worry about.
That would be great. As you heard, I'm sure that there are 41 if you count commuter rail, but for the sake of this council, we'll just mention the 31 additional stations that are getting a makeover in this capital program. The makeover consists of new walls and new lighting and new electronic wizardry in the stations, like chargers and Wi-Fi is partly that's coming anyway. Yeah, they're going to do that.
There's so many chairs.
They have them already in Penn Station, but of course, waits for a commuter and or Amtrak are longer at Penn Station, but hopefully they are at a subway station. But they're gonna have chargers, they're gonna have all kinds of weird things.
Just pick it up and let me go into
The stations that have been selected, we could get you a list of them. Clearly, some of them are selected because they are on the same line as others that are selected, and they want to do a few in a row. When I inquired as to service plans, because they're going to actually shut down one side of a station for 2 months and go in, get everything done, and leave. And leave. That's the plan for this. Winton Habersham, the senior VP of Subway, said, well, actually, the head of senior VP, he said, of course, we're not going to shut down. You're not going to have to back ride more than you have to do that now. We will do stations at different times because having people back ride for 3 stations in a row would be really crazy. So they're not going to do that. For instance, on Central Park West, 72nd and 86th Street are 2 of the stations that are in this program. They will not make you back ride, say, from 59th to 96th to access Wilbraham. So that will not be a concern.
Why?
But there's supposedly going to be a very different look in these stations when they're done. In addition, one of the commuter rail stations that is on this list is Metz Willets Point on the LI. Oh, thing's alive. Who is that?
Stewart.
Stewart.
Is that you?
I didn't know you were there. Hello, Stewart.
So, we need to be consulted by you mentioned Wall Street, station. You know, they select things with all the hand, glass tile, other things that don't really have a very useful life. I think we should weigh in on some of these streets.
So we should weigh in on the eventual look of these stations? Is that what you're saying?
That's correct. That's correct.
That's correct.
And I agree. I think it's important to vision compare people too.
Yeah, what about
Look like.
look at how they're spending money? If they're purchasing finishes that don't land or are not resilient, then it's just cosmetic and have short-term benefits. I think we're doing service to the system.
So why don't we ask when they have a preliminary idea of what these finishes are going to look like, that we get an inspection of it?
Yes.
Agreed. Hello. We will do that, Stuart. It's a great idea.
And not getting too deep with this, you know, we always hear from some of our guests about sensitivity for individuals who are handicapped. If any of these features, let's say, increase sound, extraneous sounds or deadened sounds, you know, there may be other benefits to whatever they select, or whatever they select could impair gains that we already have.
I mean, it would be really incredible at this point in time that they wouldn't be sensitive to those things, but I think we ought to reinforce it.
Well, look at the glass tiles of the Fulton Street complex. No one would consult it. They're still seen, they don't maintain them. And, you know, they may have been attractive at the beginning, but they're full of steel dust and, you know, don't hold up as well as the tile that you fixed since your grandmother was writing.
How do you know my grandmother wrote the system?
Oh.
Because you said you listened to
Like
me.
the subway.
Any other comments on
That was
the,
in your DNA.
anyway, I started to say, one of the commuter rail stations that's getting,
Come on, what do you
that's getting, the treatment will be Metz Willets Point. I inquired about this, whether it was just related to the air train that the governor has proposed to LaGuardia, and they said, no, those stations actually, both on the 7 and on the Long Island Railroad, need work. They will be getting work, and yes, they will probably prepare an interface for the coming air train to LaGuardia. I asked if the Port Authority would be paying for the air train, and I got a smile and said, we're still talking about who pays for the air train. So,
Yeah.
yeah, and as I said to the chairman and to Ronnie and to everybody, that air train is certainly not going to serve Manhattanites, because if you're coming from Manhattan to LaGuardia, you could be at the airport before you even reach Metz Willets Point. So that's not who it's serving. If you're coming from east on the Port Washington line, maybe it's really going to be helpful. We discussed Second Avenue subway and its possible delay already.
Sorry.
Yeah, and we talked a little bit about the public hearings. On the M5, there was a lot of testimony about not having to change. This is going to make a lot of extra people switch buses. In terms of Upper Manhattan, a lot of those folks are going south of 37th Street, and this would mean an additional transfer. Some folks in the village wanted the northern boundary of the M55, as the southern leg would be known, to continue further north. Many asked for a return of the M6, which, as you know, because of the Broadway pedestrian plazas, we lost. And there was some very interesting testimony. Actually, there might have been more people coming to that public hearing than some of the others, so it was a good showing. Yes, Edith.
You were going to find for me, I'm just asking if you found, is the new date on South Ferry 17 at this point still?
That is the last that I heard.
Okay, because I've heard later, and I'm not a happy camper.
No, that's the latest I heard.
Okay, fine.
I think they said it at one of the committee meetings. That
Yeah,
we're
because
still
they're,
on track for 17.
yeah.
I have an issue for you.
Um,
Couldn't replace that door.
You heard about the community meetings that are coming up on the Canarsie Tube shutdown.
Yes.
That's happening they've met with elected officials in Brooklyn and Manhattan, and they're continuing to do meetings. There are big implications if there is a total shutdown, and while it sounded convenient for the 36-month partial shutdown, actually the service in Manhattan would not be that great, and they're not sure whether the vibrations would have there's a certain kind of dust now in these tunnels that they will have to plug up on each end of where they are working. They don't want this silica dust to enter, obviously, east of Bedford Avenue or west of First Avenue, because it is not a healthy. In fact, the workers will be wearing special masks. They're also not sure if the vibrations of work in one tube will affect the other tube, since this is work that they have not done before. So it is not a slam dunk that the longer, but possibly more convenient 36-month shutdown is better for anyone. In fact, they're talking about offering an incentive to the contractor for the 18-month shutdown, and we're hoping that possibly it could be done in a shorter time than even 18 months and get it done. And they are still working out possible service plans. As I think I told you last month, I suggested a dedicated shuttle bus from Bedford Avenue and North 7th Street to Court Square Station, since the EM and 7 all run there. That would be a convenient way to get to that part of Williamsburg pretty quickly. They are going to consider that, as well as other service proposals. Obviously, if you're coming from between Canarsie and Broadway Junction, you don't have a problem. You have lots of options at Broadway Junction. Similarly, if you're between Canarsie and Myrtle Broadway, you have options with the M train. And you could even argue if you're between there and Lorimer, you have options with the G train. But if you're at Bedford Avenue, your options are severely limited. So a dedicated shuttle bus to other existing subways would be a good idea. But it's not at all clear what's happening yet, and they really want to hear from the communities. Deborah?
Reference with that, you know, the problem is you shouldn't just have the dedicated bus shuttle to Court Square, because only the 7 train has an elevator to go up and down. You really should have it extended to the next stop, Queens Plaza, for the EF and the R and R train, because then you have a lot of seniors who live over there, and they put up with them and go up and down the steps, but I can tell you, they have asked me, they want elevators. They understand it, but you need to bring it to a station that has elevators for more than one train line. You want to do 7 and then take them to the next one? Because, you know, when you have to walk around in that station, and I've done it, gee, they think it's so great because they have that moving Jetsons type sidewalk, but that's no big deal. If you still have to go up and down the steps for the E and the F as well as for the G, it doesn't make sense.
Well, Queens Plaza, Queensboro Plaza might be a better location.
Yeah.
But keep in mind that Bedford Avenue Station is not accessible now.
I know it's not accessible, but you can also take and have this, you can have them also take them to the M train. There's a station right near, not far from Whitecroft Hospital, that has an elevator that goes up to the J. So you can also have them backtrack to go there. And the M train, and they can get on there, as well as you should have buses also going down into downtown Brooklyn for them. So this way they have more than one way to go. But when they shut down the Q trains and the B lines, and when we had to do triple back and forth, which I don't understand what's the problem, we had to learn how to adjust, because we knew that with the serious damages on the walls where the stations were ready to crumble. So I can understand the community's complaint, but we need to have to send them to more than one accessible station. So any stations that have elevators, and not just sending them into Queens, but also have a bus that goes over the road, the 2 bridges for them. That would be a big help.
Well, as Peter Cafiero mentioned when I brought up the issue of the dedicated bus, there are existing buses that run along Bedford Avenue that will take you places like that and across the bridges.
Only one bus goes against the bridge, for Williamsburg, and only one for Queensboro, and that's the Q32.
I was actually referring to the bridges into Queens from Brooklyn. It's not into Manhattan.
And then one thing everybody has to wait for, when a ship goes under, and because